Welcome to my show. My name is Brian Reed, or the Pride Artist, as some people call me. I am so glad you can make it. You're probably wondering about the series on the wall I have chosen to call the Closet Kid Diaries. This is a body of work that has been in the making since 2011. Each kid I have portrayed represents a sort of piece of me and how I felt growing up as a closeted member of the LGBTQIAP community while navigating various environments. Each piece of art that you see was created between different time periods, and I am here to walk you through them. My graphite pencil drawings date back to high school, where I remember sitting in class frustrated with many of the things that were happening to me at that time. I remember this like it was yesterday. This was before I knew how to paint properly, but was always distracted by the sketches in my notebooks. Back then, I would draw all the time to release the frustrations that were bothering me. Allow me to tell you a little about myself. Even this video is a work of art I would like to share with you. I feel like my artistic consciousness started in middle school, but even before that, I was always exposed to art, specifically in religious iconography. I grew up Catholic and was drawn to the artwork in my church, which at that time was St. Catherine of Siena, and also happened to be my school until I was 12. I was drawn to the ways in which European artists would elaborately portray biblical imagery for people to venerate during worship. Our private school textbooks were covered in this artwork from front to back, and I enjoyed flipping through the pages. Around this time, I was also making comics with my friends for fun. I loved books in general, but definitely ones by David Pilkey. His art was awesome to me, and I emulated him. My friends and I would actually create flip-style books like the ones he made in Captain Underpants and Ricky Ricotta's Mighty Robot. Eventually, I turned 13, and I was sent to McClure Middle School, where I had difficulty fitting in and making friends. McClure was a public school, so the adjustment was difficult for me. Since then, I have always turned to art to cope when life completely switches up on me. With art, the techniques are always the same, and my style is always improving. That never changes. I truly believe every time you pick up a brush or a pen and draw for any amount of time, you get better by the second. I really started to grow and understand how art can be a tool for making sense of things through middle school and into high school. At this time, I was also discovering myself, and I knew I was emotionally drawn to both the male and the female gender. As I would get elaborate and ridiculous fantasies in my head of things that never come to fruition, as we all do. I was a classic closet kid myself at that time. I didn't see why it was necessary to tell anyone that I liked both genders, although as I grew and changed, so did my mannerisms, as well as my imagination, so eventually it wasn't hard for people to tell that something was up with me. I honestly didn't know myself what gay was until I began attending McClure Middle School at 13. Someone made the comment, "I hope he doesn't grow up to be gay," that I can still remember laughing off with confusion about what gay meant. I cannot remember specifically how I found out what gay meant, but I do know that when I did finally find out about the term, I began searching everywhere for more information, like the classic closet kid I was. I became very fascinated by the numerous coming out stories and gay vlogs that were on YouTube. I found a specific group of gay men who vlogged together and arranged days of the week for each member of the group to make a new post about their lives. These men called themselves the 5 Awesome Gays and included Tyler Oakley, who is now a very prolific advocate for the LGBTQIA+ community. I loved watching vloggers like Tyler Oakley and Gregory Gorgeous talk about their gay lifestyles so freely, and couldn't wait to come home from school and check out new videos on my iPod Touch. These vloggers that were willing to reach out and talk about the struggles they were facing helped me realize how much bigger than myself the world was. I gradually began to feel less hopeless about my sexual orientation and believed that I could get through the bitter loneliness of school if it meant people like Tyler Oakley were on the other side. I related to them so much, their mannerisms and the things they seemed to care about, and even the music that they liked. They were interested in things that nobody at this new public school even bothered talking to me about. Eventually, I ended up switching to another private school called Dominion Christian. Dominion had just been built, and when I thought school couldn't get any worse for me, that school punched me in my little homosexual face, kicking me while I was down. The professors were radically more religious than anything I've experienced before then, and it was at that time I really began to feel the amount of hatred that sect of people had for the LGBTQIA+ community. It would still be 3 years before I started my Closet Kids series, but much of my inspiration came from attending that high school. Of course, by this time I knew more about putting on the proper facade in order to make friends and seem normal, so for the first couple months it wasn't too bad. But when you're faking as a closet kid, you can only go so far until your friends start getting into their own personal relationships and asking you about yours. But viewer, even before I made the gut-wrenching decision to come out for the first time to one of my closest friends who initially did not take it very well, much like everyone else who attended this zealous institution, I was sort of, well, pushed out by a therapist my parents had gotten for me here in Atlanta. It was during one of our first couple sessions that, like others before, was going nowhere. Suddenly, he asked me the burning question that seemed to bother everyone I came in contact with. "Brian, are you gay?" Immediately, I stared down at my feet, not wanting to answer. I remember being so tired of lying, and after what to me seemed like an hour of silence, with which I struggled for an answer, he took my muted response as a definite yes. I can't remember everything I was thinking at the time, but I know I was tired of lying. I had become so numb to the accusation, and when he had decided that this was the crux of all my problems, he inauspiciously informed me that I was growing up to become the two worst and most hated things in society, black and gay. At the time, I didn't completely understand what he meant because for me, blackness was not at the forefront of my thoughts as much as it is today, but it really hurt me. Later that year, when I came out to my best friend over Facebook Messenger, he was not sure how he felt about the information. To be honest, even I wasn't comfortable with the information, crying in my room when I decided that it was true. But telling my therapist for the first time, which initially wasn't the greatest experience, had made me more comfortable with the fact of the matter, and I began to see the importance of coming out to my friends. It was then that I decided if these so-called friends still liked me after I came out, then it proved the strength of our friendship. To this day, I still think this is a good mindset to have when coming out to anyone. If you are immediately rejected by a friend after coming out to them, they were not good friends to begin with, and you are doing yourself a favor. As far as art goes, I did not draw as much throughout these years, as I was very focused on sports. Although I refused to come out to any of my teammates, the Closet Kid entitled My Closet best illustrates the restricting nature of self-denial I was experiencing at that time. Eventually, I switched schools for the last time to the Walker School in Marietta during my junior year of high school and loved it. The school, although still a private one, was non-denominational, so there were various religions in attendance, from Islamics to Jews and Christians. Nowhere in the curriculum did anyone say I was going to hell for being myself, and I was happy. It was there I began drawing more seriously, and when I took my first properly taught art class from Miss Laura Stewart, I fell in love. Miss Stewart included art history into her curriculum, and I began to not only see the same work that had amazed me when I was 12 and attending Catholic school, but I also began learning the names and lifestyles of the different artists who had created them. I was mesmerized by the detail of the new artwork I was being exposed to, as well as the depth in subject matter by artists like Caravaggio, Hieronymus Bosch, Salvador Dali, Damien Hirst, and many others who had been able to powerfully express their emotions, experiences, and ideas through their artwork. It was then that I stopped playing sports, and as my artistic talent grew, I realized I could use this medium, which at the time was just graphite pencil, to tell my story about what I went through at the previous schools I had attended. For me, it was a therapeutic process, but people were attracted to how unapologetically I depicted these sensitive topics that were filling up inside my head. Also, by this time, my style had developed to the point that even though my work would make some people uncomfortable, I was never told to stop. I was told I had potential. Art became a realm where I could completely be myself without any inhibitions, and that was something I wasn't used to but enjoyed very much. It was at this time in 2011 that I created This Is How I've Been Feeling, the first Closet Kid in my Closet Kid series. I was still watching YouTube videos every day and had begun searching for Pride Parade footage and speed drawing videos. I would stay up all night watching footage people had taken from LGBTQIAP events and hoping that one day I would be able to attend. When I finally began my senior year of high school, I took AP or Advanced Placement Art, where we were instructed to choose a specific topic to draw about for the entire year. Continuing under the tutelage of Miss Laura Stewart, we were assigned to create one piece of artwork a week to add to our AP portfolio. Each piece had to somehow relate to the topic we had chosen at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year, images from our individual portfolios were sent out to be scored by a group of AP graders composed of professors from separate high schools and universities. After months of waiting, we were given a grade between 1 and 5, 5 being the highest. Return portfolios did not include comment or critique, and this vague evaluation did not appeal to me. But I enjoyed the challenging nature of the class, and upon choosing gay pride as my AP art topic, everyone officially knew I was gay. Although this new high school was more open-minded than my previous schools, I was not popular by any means, and was used to being ignored by people who didn't agree with who I was. In a way, it strengthened me, and was part of the reason I started working large scale, believing that these people may be able to ignore my presence, but will have a hard time ignoring my artwork if it is life-size. This is when I began drawing Pride Parade scenes for the first time. I did them large scale and dreamed that one day I would have a show where kids like me who haven't had a chance to go to Pride could be surrounded by the life-size Pride scenes and feel like they were there. I myself still hadn't been to Pride because I had yet to come out to my parents, but with my new AP Art topic, Gay Pride, and the whole school knowing, I knew that it was time. Although it was difficult for me to admit it to them, once I did, my father offered to take me to Florida's St. Petersburg Pride Parade, where I had my very first Pride Parade experience. It was an incredible one that I will never forget, and I was able to gather dozens of images that I would later draw from and include in my portfolio. It was this year that I also finally began my Closet Kid Diaries series. Encouraged by the new friends I had made after publicly coming out, I began with This Is How I've Been Feeling, a mixed media self-portrait made from graphite pastel and newspaper clippings that outline various hate crimes, LGBT, suicides, and other misdeeds done to the LGBT community that I would constantly notice in newspapers or on TV. Next, I created a graphite pencil version of Rachel that properly illustrated the paranoia I felt as a closet kid with the fear of being outed. Then came Jessie, a piece that I called social suicide at the time, because to me, it represents the permanence of coming out. Much like suicide, once you come out, there is no going back. Last came My Closet, a piece that represents closetedness in the athletic community, which was something I experienced every week during soccer and cross-country practice before coming out. With My Closet, I decided to choose football because my boyfriend at that time played for our school's team, and he would tell me stories about his experience that both angered and inspired me. It was the middle of my senior year by the time I had completed my first 4 Closet Kids, as well as a couple large-scale Pride scenes, and it was time for our annual high school gallery exhibit. As AP Art students, we were in charge of curating the show, and I learned a lot about displaying work. Come opening night, people seemed to be impressed with my attention to detail so much that even the conservative viewers were able to forgive my uncouth subject matter. Positive reviews of my work excited me so much that I officially decided I wanted to major in art during college with a focus in painting so I could turn the scenes I had done graphite drawings of into elaborate and realistic oil paintings that would demand the attention of its viewer. After graduating from the Walker School, I became very fascinated by photorealists like Chuck Close, Richard Estes, and Audrey Flack, whose work I was lucky enough to see in Soho, New York, at the famous Louis K. Mizell Gallery, where I met the father of the photorealist movement himself, Louis K. Mizell. Although all of these events did strengthen my passion for the art world and desire to paint, it wouldn't be until I met my Maryville College art professor, Carl Gombert, of whom I begged to teach me how to paint as realistically as possible. Under Carl Gombert's instruction, I began to understand the type of confidence one has to have with a brush in order to create high-quality oil paintings. Carl taught me how closely pencil marks related to brush strokes and to apply my colors with conviction. Understanding the similarities between oil painting and drawing, I quickly picked up this new medium, and by the age of 20 had switched over completely from graphite pencil to oil paint. I spent a year practicing the new techniques I was learning before adding more Closet Kids to the series, and in the meantime created Reflection, Shelf Life, and Madonna and Child. Soon after finishing these 3 pieces, my initial dream of creating large-scale Pride Parade scenes for closeted individuals to immerse themselves in turned into something much bigger when I met a woman named A.T. Towney who worked with the Atlanta Pride Committee. It was near the middle of my sophomore year of college that A.T. suggested that I try to sell my artwork at the city's Pride Parade. Until meeting A.T., I had not thought about this, but loved the idea, and that is where my trips to Gay Pride and the establishment of Equalizer coat began. After my meeting with A.T., I began designing t-shirts and stickers that, to me, represented the inclusive values of the Pride Parade culture. It was at this time that I also completed my 5th Closet Kid, patron saint of the closet, she who cries in vain, a work I had initially began for a Trans Day of Remembrance protest and candlelight vigil event, being put on by my community's PFLAG, of which I was on the board. I also created a painted edition of Jessie to take to Atlanta Pride with me. Later that year, I teamed up with a local t-shirt supplier in Tennessee named Borderland Tees, purchased a trailer, and drove everything I had from Maryville, Tennessee to Piedmont Park in Atlanta, where I set up my first Pride Parade booth. Things went so smoothly, and the reception of my work was met with so much excitement that I was hooked from there and went on to display my work and Equalizer merchandise at Knoxville Pride, St. Petersburg Pride, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Pride, Charlotte, North Carolina Pride, Murfreesboro, Tennessee Pride, Outer Banks, North Carolina Pride, Dallas, Texas Pride, Durham, North Carolina Pride, Chattanooga, Tennessee Pride, Asheville, North Carolina Pride, Salem, North Carolina Pride, Savannah, Georgia Pride, and just recently, Washington, D.C. Pride. My travels to gay prides have lasted me from the beginning of my sophomore year until now. I am still actively searching for new pride parades to travel to with my art and also thinking of new Closet Kids to create as I meet new and interesting people with their own coming out stories that inspire my work. The sixth and most recent Closet Kid, St. Wilgefortz, for example, was done specifically for the trip I took to Charlotte, North Carolina Pride in 2016. I created St. Wilgefortz in order to show solidarity with the trans community dealing with their government's disgraceful HB2 bill. It always amazes me to hear people I've never met talk about the kids in my series with conviction because they have either been through or are going through the same things that I have portrayed. Sometimes these LGBTQIA people I meet are able to discover something deeper about my series that I had not seen myself. It is for these individuals that I wrote my Closet Kid Diaries manifesto that I would now like to share with you. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope you enjoy my show.
I'm his servant.
And phenomenal muralist who was the whole LGBT.
I'm really trying to kind of bring out or expose LGBT culture as because I feel like right now it's not really seen as a real culture in general for some people, or most people
try to avoid it.
Yeah, try to like cover it up as like, oh, I've never met a gay person before. Yeah, or some people say that.
I don't do this for anyone but the gay kids whose every days are bad days. Put this on your playlist. This is for the gays who don't have crap, but friends with knives out ready to stab them in their backs. Stuck in the closet with no color but pitch black, wedged in between polyester panic attacks. People point out flaws before he even knew they were there. Why should they care? It's not like it's theirs. Born in a snare and labeled a square. Shit so unfair, man, this shit's so unfair. Haters in prayer, like this shit is rare, like it's his cross to bear. Man, this shit's so unfair. As the loneliness grows, he watches his soul decompose, thinking, if there is a God, why was it me that he chose? Constantly hoping nobody knows, unable to trust friends like foes. Hate is all that he knows. With talks of him packing fudge, they wonder why he still holds a grudge. People judge before he even gets a chance to budge. Your life is nobody else's debate. Fuck straight. We all equate in every state. Constant brochures claiming to have found a cure. Power-hungry politicians pretending to be unsure. It's hard not to believe those who seem mature, but I know for sure there ain't no fucking cure. And me, I'm the faggot your favorite rappers always talk about. When it comes to art, no doubt, that's what I'm about. Trapped in the closet, I'm here to break you out. Here to correct shit that you only hear through word of mouth. Ignorance, I live the fight. I know exactly what the closet's like. Dark as night, but you must fight for your human right. Some believe we chose this life self-consciously. Some bring hate with such a vicious animosity. I'm here to fulfill the prophecy of human equality, but despite my generosity, hell is still what they promised me. I couldn't care less if you disagree. It's clear to see that the pride artist is who I was born to be. Done playing pretend, but still scared to lose friends who in the end turned out to be frail as loose ends and fake. Thought I had so much at stake. I have nothing left, So there's nothing that you can take. With nothing to lose, walk a mile in my shoes. Right out of the closet, just being painfully honest, this I promise. If being myself is against the law, then I'm gonna live life flawless. Remain flawless. The closet may hide your identity, but slurs that scorch the soul take a toll you can't control. It's unbelievable when friends are nothing that they pretend to be. Just know that you can depend on me. So take me with you off the hanger in the closet when you leave. I got your back like your favorite sweater with the comfortable sleeves. If ever you're feeling a lack of ambition, just listen to this lyrical proposition. These haters think they're so clever. They treat us like we're lesser. But if we expect things to get better, it's time we come out together.
County Commissioner Karen Miller is introducing a resolution in opposition to the Supreme Court's ruling to strike down state laws banning same-sex marriage. WBIR 10 News reporter Kendall Morris is outside the county courthouse right now, where the meeting will start in less than an hour. Kendall?
Beth, out here right now, the Tennessee Equality Project members are out here protesting this resolution. Behind me, there are a number of people already out here, and they only expect this number to grow. I spoke with a lot of them who say they couldn't believe whenever they saw this resolution that this was happening here in Blount County. Now, this resolution condemns judicial tyranny and petitions God's mercy. This is a reaction to legalizing gay marriage here in Tennessee. As written, the resolution asks that God pass citizens of Blount County by in his coming wrath and not destroy the county as he did Sodom and Gomorrah. Further, by adopting this resolution, it asks for God's favor since Blount County has been forced to comply with Tennessee law. Miller's resolution adds that a lawless judiciary has legalized what God and the Bible expressly forbid. Now, this is a topic that has many people fired up on both sides of the argument, and we'll be inside for the discussion of this resolution, and we'll bring you an update from both sides of this story on the Night Beat. Beth?
A lot to come from this, Kendall. Thank you so much. Kendall Morris joining us live from Blount County.
These haters think they're so clever. They treat us like we're lesser. But if we expect things to get better, it's time we come out together.